Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhoads on the Buy Here Pay Here Morning Show. Take it away, you two.
Hey, good morning.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Waiting for us to pop on the screen.
Yeah, there we are.
A little bit of an internet delay.
Just a second.
And a little bit of a
tongue
delay for me.
It's casual Friday.
Oh, yeah.
Jim this morning when he was getting dressed, he's like, I think I'm going to wear flannel. And I said, great. You know, he usually dresses so professionally. And I'm like, you watch a lot of podcasts and people can be in athletic wear. Or whatever. So
it's a couple things. I mean, we're seeing our first snow on the mountaintops.
Oh, yeah.
So that's a thing. We had our first pumpkin spice latte yesterday.
Yes.
And then, today we're talking Recon. So it just kind of, I don't know.
It's just a casual day.
Friday.
Because, you don't wear your nicest stuff in the shop.
Yeah.
And it's Friday.
Looking
forward to Jim's son is coming this weekend to come spend a little bit of time here and hang out with us. And
excited.
It's just beautiful because the fall colors are starting to pop.
Yep.
What do we have for announcements? I know that the discount for Buy Here Pay Here Dealer Forum has passed. But I know that you can still get tickets to that. So if that's something that you want to do, go to niada.org.
I better not say. When you get that wrong, you end up on some sort of a doll website. You do. It's like about dolls. So
it's right here. It's niada.com /BHPH Dealer Forum.
There you go.
Okay.
Get yourself registered and get out there for that. So all good stuff.
Yep. Anything from any other thing you want to announce? Any insights since something that we're going to be talking about later that you guys had a good V8 meeting last night?
So much stuff. Yeah. We had a couple of good meetings this week and have two more, have one each of the next 2 weeks to wrap up. There's still time, by the way, for those dealers that are in the 500 to 2,000 account range or the dealers that are brand new. There's time to get in those meetings for October. So just reach out.
And then also for the conversation around pay plans, we have a guest coming for that.
Michael will join for that.
And so only people that are members of V8 will have access to that. So there is still time to get in and get access. It's going to be a really great conversation around
collector pay plans.
Collectors. Yep. You're not covering any of the departments,
not
just
this
collectors?
Time. No, we're going to focus just on collectors because it's, we're trying to keep it a little brief. Keep it to hour and a half.
Yeah.
And so, we'll just stick in that one lane for that one.
Sounds great.
And have some more in probably November.
All right. So we had a really great conversation because we usually talk about what we're going to be talking about. Sometimes we're figuring out what we're going to be talking about the morning of. But we had a great conversation this morning about what we were going to be talking about. And Jim took me through some of the tools that he's built for this. And my job here apparently is to play as much of devil's advocate as I can. But I still will have if I stray.
No, there will be no straying.
There'll be no straying.
No, we don't stray on a Friday. No,
no straying. Okay. Yeah. So we're talking about Recon and faster Recon. Jim put a poll out early this morning. I mean, I woke up this morning and saw that he had put it out there like 3:00 our time. I was like, someone wasn't sleeping.
That was up. That happens on occasion.
Yeah. So he posted a poll, and do you want to show?
I'm not going to try to show it. I'm just going to give an update on it. It looks like I probably need to refresh, but it looks like you have 23 respondents so far in the poll, and Recon. Okay, so let me just read it. It's for those who haven't seen it yet. It's a dealer-only poll
it's on dealer or BHPH Success Group.
You can find it in there.
So if you'd like to participate in that poll, please, find it in Success.
And it says for those where capital is not a limitation. In other words, money's not your barrier,
not a problem,
right? Then which of these most prevents you from increasing sales by 50%? So if I want to sell more, and I have a chance to sell
50% is a huge increase. And so outside of capital, Okay, so because I think it's a different conversation when you say buy 10,
Right.
than when you say buy 50%. If you're really going to charge up and increase what you're selling, where is your bottleneck in that?
That's what so the questions
Yeah.
were, the first one was nothing is limiting growth. So like
And there were a few people
options.
that have
There was one.
just one. Okay.
Yeah. And then, the other limitation would be acquiring that much inventory. So it's a buying side, right?
And did anyone vote for that? Yeah.
Yeah, we got a couple of votes on that.
Okay.
It looks like. And then Recon came in at 27% of the votes. So the Recon getting that much inventory repaired and reconditioned for sale. So that's part of where this topic came up. We hear it across social media. We hear it in our V8 groups. It's like, we heard it in 2 different groups this week where they're saying Recon is our bottleneck. If I could recon more cars, I could sell more cars. So that's the thing.
So a little over a quarter so far that have responded have said it's Recon. Okay.
And then the largest one coming back in so far, which kind of surprised me, but 47% of the respondents chose sales traffic. We don't get enough leads or qualified applicants for that.
Okay.
So they're saying
there's a lot to unpack with that because there's traffic. What's a qualified lead for you? Yeah. That can go into how much you're asking for down.
And we
what's
gave them
their
an opportunity to write in.
What's their down? What's lots of.
So the other options. One person added space limitations, like
I don't have it in the lot. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep.
Okay, so on the space one, I'm gonna squirrel really fast.
Okay.
We've witnessed whoever it is that put space on that. We have had dealers that have a lot big enough for under 20 cars turn it 2 to 3 times in a month.
Right.
So it's that the idea that you have to have all the cars on your lot at one given time in order to sell that many is it isn't true for everybody. So space, I know when you see a small lot, it's that people feel like that's a barrier, but it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be as long as you can replace the cars, right?
Yes.
If you can
So
buy, if you sell to, and you can
your
quickly,
pipeline.
Your pipeline is such that you can replace those 2 spots. Then turning that lot over 2 to 3 times is doable.
Yeah.
I've done it myself in my own dealership. I've witnessed. We've worked with dealers for many years where they consistently did it. Like almost didn't go a month without at least 2 times turn.
And I've seen, for the one that got the most votes, and we can talk about this. We have many times, but we can talk about this more on a future date about leads, traffic. And so leads are always an issue.
Sure.
And just getting good leads in the door, or actually just getting them to show up.
That's the other thing. Well, and getting our salespeople, if we don't use a BDC, getting our salespeople to follow up. Like it's something we heard in our meetings this week again, as dealers are saying, I have trouble getting my salespeople. Like I could stand over them with a baseball bat. I mean, really, when I'm kind of took that approach, that I could stand over them, and I cannot get them to call the customers. Certainly can't get them to call somebody who's more than 3 days, 7 days.
So the funny thing about that, before we get onto our real topic, is I met a gal at an entrepreneurial function in the Salt Lake area, and she invited me to her business because we got into a conversation about how she can change up her marketing some. And she invited me into her business, and it's a hot yoga spa. And the business model, I'm just like, this is amazing. But her biggest problem is getting her team to respond to the leads. Inquiries. So it's not just us.
Yeah.
It's like, this is something that a lot of businesses struggle with, is getting the team to respond to leads.
And that's not our conversation for today.
No,
but we have something we can come back and talk about that.
Okay.
That's something else that's come up.
But it's about Recon. And so
let's dig in. So probably a little bit of history. We've kind of touched on, in past podcasts, we've touched on bits and pieces of this. We've talked about elements of this. So let me kind of back up and give broader background. I was in the retail and sporting goods store business before I ever got in the car business. Okay. So being aware of inventory turns and measuring, how fast stuff turns is something I came from before I ever got in the car business in 95. Then in 97, I stepped into Buy Here, Pay Here. And with Buy Here, Pay Here, I managed for a couple of years before becoming a consultant, traveled all over the country. So in my experience though, I can point to at least 3 times where I was either the owner or the manager with control.
Like the manager with the checkbook.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
So,
like
so
full
with that
control
authority,
over what's happening.
So there are at least 3 occasions where I have utilized the techniques or strategy that I'm going to lay out for folks today. And I can just tell you, you're going to hear people, and this always kind of runs through my head about, because we hear it when we talk to dealers, when we hear it in the meetings, V8 meetings, dealers talking to one another. You hear kind of the mindset about, this is a limitation. And sometimes it's the difference between a real limitation and a perceived limitation. So I want to kind of bust through a lot of that. There's a lot of kind of myth busting that I want to kind of deal with here today, because people have this perception sometimes that we have limitations, or we have decided there are some limitations, so we choose not to pursue this channel anymore because we gave up on it for whatever reason, or whatever, or maybe we've just never been introduced to the concept that I'm going to share here today. But when I think about our ability to recondition cars more quickly, there are some elements. And for today, what I'm going to ask our listeners to think about is just outside reconditioning. Okay. So if we were to farm out labor outside, and so you can hear the dealers now, right? You can hear it.
Oh yeah. We kind of went through and discussed all of the but,
Right.
I think it's a kind of a piece to bring up, is that not all dealers have a shop in house.
True. Absolutely.
And so we put dealers into business all the time. And that's one of the questions: are you going to do in-house or not in-house? Farm
External.
it out, external. And it is absolutely possible to get great work done with not having it inside your business, and as part of your business model.
We're going to map out some of the reasons here today. So I want to try to give our listeners some very specific steps that they can take. And keep in mind, I did this. There's one example where I stepped into a general manager role with a group that had 4 locations, and volume was really low. Cars were dusty and just kind of sitting and what have you. And we had some other problems with outsourced mechanic shop, because none of the Buy Here, Pay Here stores had their own shop. Okay. So in that whole process that I went through, it was a great learning experience for me, but it was really a matter of, kind of shaking people from their attitudes and kind of mindset about what can be done, what's possible. Right. So that was a good example there. And then later,
because there's a lot of can't do that. Can't do that, won't work. Can't do that, won't work.
Yeah, there is that attitude.
And sometimes that comes from experience but maybe it was approached in a different way than what we're proposing.
Right.
Or that you've seen other people and their stories have been bad, or, and it's like, you can't do that.
Sure.
It's like, this really is a solid answer to this. I want to increase my sales by double, and Recon is the bottleneck.
Yeah. Or whatever, it's double, if it's 25%, 50%, whatever the increase is. 10. I'm just saying, one of the keys to being able to recondition cars faster is going to be around, and I'm going to go through the actual step-by-step things that I would recommend, and kind of tips of things to do. But I would say you first have to recognize that you're making an investment that, I think when we show you the math, you'll see that the investment that you're making exceeds the investment that you typically make in a typical Buy Here, Pay Here structure. So again, we'll go through this math, but I think we have to really get comfortable with this idea of opportunity cost. So does it cost me more to send cars to an outside shop? Probably will.
Should we pull up what an opportunity cost is? Because unless you're really familiar with that, with the phrase of that, I think it might elude some people.
Yeah, a quick Google search says that the definition of opportunity cost is the loss of potential gain from other alternatives when one alternative is chosen. So you choose one, and in doing that, you're going to forego the opportunity that existed on the other. So you have to calculate that into your decision, right? You want to conclude that in the math when you're kind of exploring the choices. So now, this premise is that we're going to start using outside shops to recondition our cars. Why? Because, again, we're putting aside the other. We've got some assumptions here. So we're assuming we got the capital. We're assuming we got the manpower. We're assuming we don't have trouble buying that many cars. We can buy them.
Manpower where? Sales?
Wherever.
Okay.
Could be in the shop. I don't have enough people to be able to turn more cars. I can't sell more because I don't have enough salespeople.
You have enough that you have the manpower. So, so you're talking more about like the team to be able to close sales. Yeah. So it's just, we're looking at vehicle.
To narrow our focus today, I'm saying I'm putting aside, we're making those assumptions and saying we've got enough money. We've got either access to line of credit or funds to buy more cars.
Okay.
And we got the people to be able to sell 50% more, whatever the thing would be. And if we're saying Recon is our only bottleneck, then I'm going to suggest to you there's a way for you to move beyond that bottleneck. And I promise you it can work in any market.
Yeah. Yeah. And we've taught this principle many times.
Yeah. It's because I've used it. I mean, I went into a business that was not producing at a decent sales clip, and we fixed it. There
are steps to this, though. Yeah. I mean, there are rules that Jim has fleshed out, whether or not they work. And so do we want
let me start showing. I'll show the first one.
So the first one.
Tip number 1. I'm still suggesting that you would keep the assessment and the diagnostics in-house. Why? That's huge, because dealers know that do this kind of thing. Being able to get a good diagnosis the first time, like having a tech or somebody on your team who can get in there and get the diagnosis right the first time, avoids that scenario that I call, and picked it up from others, but this idea of throwing parts at stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. We just saw that with a family member.
Well, it's not just that, but I mean, you see, if you're sending a car somewhere and saying, hey, I need to get this front line ready, whatever, it's the same thing that's going to happen in some cases that when we have them do a mechanics check, is they're going to give you a shopping list.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I go get my oil changed, and it's like, you need to have this done and you need to have this done. So, if you're just sending it out there and having them having a third party, unless it's a very trusted third party, go through and do the diagnostic, you're going to get a lot of superfluous stuff that's thrown in there that we need to do. And it will cost more.
And so when you've got somebody who's good at diagnosis, they're going to try to get the diagnosis right the first time. And there's another element to this. When you do this, then I think what we have to be prepared to do is help the, sorry, I'm fixing something before we get to that next step. The thing we have to fix is this idea that we're going to get the diagnosis right as much as we can. And when we farm out the work, we're going to be hiring them to do a job. We're requesting a job done. Okay. So here's this 2017, Ford Focus, whatever. I don't even know if they still make Ford Focus, whatever, but pick a car and say, here's this car and we're hiring you to replace the water pump.
Okay.
And so the shop is over there saying, well, if the water pump doesn't fix it, I don't want to be responsible, which is cool. I can accept that responsibility when I get clear with them and I work with them enough. I'm hiring you to do that job. I accept the responsibility if that doesn't solve the problem. That's on me.
I want to just side note to everybody that's listening to these tips. We're going to go through the numbers in just a minute and what it means to your business and your volume.
Right.
And what it's really going to cost you.
And what you're missing now.
So these are the rules around that we advise people to keep.
So it's kind of process. I'm trying to help people visualize. Well, how would I do that? Like if I said, yes, I wanted to increase my volume 50%, I recognize I'm missing some opportunity, then how would I get there? And so what I'm telling you is we'll go through more of these points here, but what I can tell you is that the thing that happens with this is that you get up to a place. I got my wrong thing open. I guess can't seem to do it on this device. So sorry, bear with me.
Do you want me to add that to a stage?
The second, no, just the second bullet. We can move on to the second bullet.
Okay, there's a 1A.
Yeah, that's
so.
Right.
Okay,
that's
1A.
All right.
This is a big one.
Yeah.
This is a big one because we know, and it's like I'm the devil's advocate. Their rate is going to be a lot more expensive than my rate
Yeah,
if I'm doing it
and
in-house.
if it's
Mhm.
my dealership and I have my own service
Mhm.
department, then I can charge my sales department cost. I can charge it retail,
Mhm.
whatever. It's
And we've
almost
seen that.
immaterial
Yeah.
here. It's
Mhm.
like that's not the significant part of what we're talking about here. So you're going to say, yeah, but Jim, if I do that, I'm going to
Mhm.
give up this profit that I would share in my own service
Mhm.
department. But you just told me I'm
You
selling 20 a
can't get
month
yeah.
and you can't recondition anymore for
Yeah.
whatever the reason is. It's
Yeah.
kind of like back to the thing about it doesn't matter why the car hasn't sold, it's got to go away. It doesn't matter. You can talk yourself, oh, but it's still a nice car. It still drives. It doesn't matter. It's
Mhm.
been passed over again
Mhm.
and again. It's got to go away. So in this
Yeah.
case, same thing. It's like
Pay their
what we're
rate.
doing is not
Mhm.
working. And so we're going to pay their rate. So if I show up to Joe's garage and I say,
Mhm.
hey, I've got some stuff I want to bring your way. How you guys on your schedule? Would you be able to fit a couple in this week?
Yeah.
Right.
And part of this pay their rate, at least for a while, is when you're shopping for mechanics. When you're starting this process of like you're introducing yourself to a new mechanic, this is pay their rate at the
Yeah.
beginning.
At the
And
beginning.
and the reason for that is because they're going to start to see some of these other tips talk about it a little bit, but they're going to start to see, okay, this is another revenue stream for our shop. I
Yeah.
mean, and so you just pay their rate at the beginning so that also a way for you to build trust
Mhm.
with the mechanic and also pique their interest.
Well, and alternatively, I could
Mhm.
go in there and I could sit down and say, hey, we're a big operation doing 25 a month. We're trying to get to 40. And so
Mhm.
if you guys could help me on the labor rate, I know you guys, your publicized rate is 150, but if you would do 120 for me, but they don't know what your volume is yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can tell them,
Exactly.
you can make some promises, but you
Yeah.
don't know they don't know your volume yet.
And then this kind of flows into paying their rate. Once people see what the volume is, that you're going to have that, this is the tip number
Mhm.
2, avoid promising all the work to
Never,
one
never happen.
mechanic shop.
So I've
And
had
why?
mechanics do that. So I went through this in
But I
Texas.
can get a really great deal. If I give them all my business,
Yeah.
instead of the 150, they're going to go down to 120.
It's up to the shop to decide. But if I go to the shop and the
Mhm.
shop says, and I've had this happen, they'll say, I remember one in Texas said, I'll give you a better rate if I can get all your work. And if I was talking to that person and I could turn around and look at the lot, I could probably see 10 or 12 of our cars in their lot that weren't
That aren't done.
in the shop.
Yeah.
And so they're just basically storing the cars already. So the point is this: I'll never promise all the work to anybody, but what I can tell this person, I said, if you're quick on the work and you get two ready and the work is good, you get it right the first time and the work is good, you're going to
Mhm.
get most of the work because
Mhm.
it's a hustle thing. Like
Yeah.
you can earn
Oh,
most
yeah.
of the work,
Mhm.
but in this scenario that I'm really thinking, I want you to imagine going out to 5 new shops next week.
Mhm.
And you're going to say, well, there aren't any. Well, you may have to drive a little farther. And it's probably going to be worth it to you because when you drive 30 minutes more
Mhm.
to find a shop, then you're going to find that once you can choose multiple ones
Mhm.
and you're going to feed them 2 cars at a time. Okay.
Mhm.
That's it. That's why you can't promise. And this is, I promise you, this is the key to getting this stuff to turn
2 cars at a time,
max.
max.
And so this is why. So what happens?
That's an important thing too. It's like 2 cars at a time.
Right.
Yeah.
And so now this is where you start to get things moving because why? You've got 5 different shops. Rate
Mhm.
may vary. How
Mhm.
quickly they work may vary. I may have one shade tree guy who really only works in his own shop on his weekend and he only gets me 1 car a month. But that's a car that I wasn't being able to get through my own shop anyway.
Mhm.
Right. So, but I'm using 5 shops and the ones who get it, like they'll start to understand right away. Oh, wow. We finished those 2 in 2 days
Mhm.
and we got 2 more just bam, right? And
And
so
yeah, that's where when you say uh that you're paying their full price for a
for a while,
while, once they understand what it is that's happening, that's when they're either gonna say, "I want all the work," or you can say, you know what? How about this?
so
We'll give you 2
there's
at a time." and you can do as many as you
That's
can
it.
during
That's
the
the
month.
same thing I'm going to say to everybody
Yeah.
who asks me. I just
Mhm.
say, I'm never going to give anybody all the work. I've said
Mhm.
it plenty of
Uh-huh.
times to the shops because they do try to, get all the labor. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, that slows me down.
But part of this, of them getting what it is that you're doing, is you we strongly suggest that you're very quick on the money. That
Mhm.
when you go to pick up those cars, you are paying them.
Well, whatever the
And
arrangement is, like
Mhm.
if they expect
At the
cash on
beginning.
the
Yeah.
button, then yeah, I'm going to take a check. And so just fax me the invoices. We don't use fax anymore. Get me the invoices
Mhm.
and we'll bring a check for those and
Mhm.
we'll pick those two up. So we'll ask them a lot of times because sometimes they have bodies on their side that are sitting around. So they've got two ready. Do you have the people to be able to drive them to us and we'll have two more ready for you when you get here? Or do you need us to come get them? So we'll bring you two more. And
Mhm.
so just kind of back and forth, whatever
Mhm.
makes sense, because it's in my best interest to get two more
And
in on the lift over there as soon as
yeah,
possible.
true. One of the beautiful things about your team going out to pick them up and taking two cars is that they get to drive the cars.
So what happens? Let's
Uh-huh.
say, for example, all my shops now are within 30 minutes. And now
Mhm.
let's say I pick 5 more shops. I have to
Mhm.
drive farther out to the edge of the county or even the next county to get so now maybe I'm driving a full hour. But what that means is I'm getting the 2 cars that I bought that we've assessed and we know that they just need some kind of alignment work or whatever. Then we're going to have an hour to drive. We got 2 drivers going out with 2
Mhm.
cars. We got
And
an
then
hour out and then an hour back with the cars that are just coming out of the shop.
yeah, and this is a whole nother thing that we really, really encourage dealerships to drive their
Of
cars
course.
till they're nice and warm.
Absolutely.
And that your team, it's like all of the cars are being driven at some point where they can get nice and warm,
Mhm.
and that it also helps the team
Sure.
learn the cars a little bit better.
Yeah, and that
Mhm.
reminds me on the thing about getting warm, like back to the assessment part, is sometimes it's difficult with these when you've got a car that maybe you bought it, had some body damage, and it's really not drivable, like it needs a
Mhm.
front wheel repaired or whatever, and you can't drive it. Well, that's comes challenging, and dealers are taking some risk there because sometimes you don't know
Mhm.
till you get a wheel on it and go drive it whether transmission's performing as expected.
Yeah.
Right? You can run some
Yeah.
tests or whatever, but until you actually get out and
Mhm.
put it on the road. So this is the tricky thing about them,
Mhm.
getting a full assessment. Like I really want a full assessment and this is why
Mhm.
I want to keep my shop and my people. When
Yeah.
I've got somebody who's good at diagnosis, I want them to do that diagnosis.
Mhm.
We farm out the job to be done,
Mhm.
and dealers will get comfortable with it. There's parts people are going to be saying, well, what about parts? I'm going to pay more for parts, maybe. But when you see the math that we're going
Yeah.
to show you, even if you're
Yeah.
paying more for parts, you're going to be well ahead to
Yeah.
get these cars done because what we're
Mhm.
talking about is business that you're not getting now,
Yeah.
right?
So I mean the tip 4 is right along this is be quick with the next cars. So
Right.
it's like you drive and replace. And then this next one is one that I've heard
Okay.
is that there's no hungry shops. It's like everyone is in a deficit for techs because they all have too much work and not enough techs. And it's like,
It's not true.
is that
And as
true?
long as we
It's
keep
not.
telling ourselves that
Yes.
that's the case,
There's
then we're
it's just like you're trying to grow your business. There are new shops that are opening up. There's a lot of opportunity where, they just got a new tech. And
Mhm.
so now they can open up for a few more
Sure.
vehicles during the month. And so everyone is in this expansion, in their businesses at some point or another, they're going to be in an expansion mode.
Right.
And so it's just finding those you're catching them at the expansion mode.
And I can remember in each of the places that where I'm talking about, my own dealership in
Mhm.
Oklahoma, managing in Texas, managing in Tennessee. In each of those scenarios, we ultimately identified 1 or 2 shops
Mhm.
who were hungry enough
Yeah.
and got it. Like they were playing a long
Mhm.
game and they could see the benefit of doing business with us where we accepted responsibility for what was ours.
Mhm.
We paid quickly
Mhm.
and we helped out. We were good to work with in every way that, could be
Mhm.
a customer for them. So if those people are smart enough and they're out there, it's like the example I gave to you is if I sit in a V8 meeting and I've got 8 dealers on the screen, there are probably at least 2 or 3 of those that are hungry and they're turning, like they're moving stuff, they're making things happen, they're adding people to their
Mhm.
team, what have you. And so they're hungry. And
Mhm.
I'm saying if you go out and find 8 shops in
Yeah.
your market, there are going to be 2 or 3 of those that are hungry and they're going to end up getting most of the
Yeah.
business.
Yeah. And you think about in our industry, if you asked did a survey, how many of you would like to sell more?
Mhm.
It's a very large amount that
Mhm.
would like to sell more. And I'm most entrepreneurs, it's like they want to be able to grow, and that includes your mechanic shops. So
Sure.
it's like they're wanting more, and so you're going to reward a quick turnaround,
Mhm.
accurate work done,
Right.
and just continue, because they can do 2 a month, or they
Mhm.
can do 10 a month,
Yeah.
or whatever. Mhm.
So we can show
Okay.
the
Oh, wait, there was one more.
Okay.
Warren Buffett.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we went through this morning, and the man's a genius when
Yeah,
it
yeah.
comes to business. I
Yeah.
just really, really love. He's just little words of wisdom, and he's be like Buffett. And we're not talking about the the Buffett that it passed away, just
Jimmy Buffett.
Jimmy Buffett.
No, this is and I'm not even sure Buffett
Warren
is the one
Buffett.
who originally, this might go back to Rockefellers or somebody,
Mhm.
but somebody like that is quoted with this idea of reaching over dollars to pick up dimes or pennies or whatever.
Mhm.
So this is where I think this kind of falls here, because right now
Mhm.
we think we're so worried about paying an
Mhm.
extra $25 or $50 an hour
Mhm.
labor, and so that's that
Yeah.
in the scheme of what you're going to see in the math is that's pennies.
So let's look
okay?
at the math, because that's one of the things that we hear, and all of that, and opinions, all, but if you can't measure,
Mhm.
if you can't look at it in numbers, because numbers don't lie.
Right.
And so this is we had a little bit of fun this morning going through this. And so those of you who are just listening to an audio podcast, please go to YouTube.
Yeah.
And while you're there, like and subscribe.
Please.
And so you can take a look at this. And so the way Jim typically creates these spreadsheets is the yellow parts are
Inputs.
inputs. So we're going, your current monthly volume is 30. We're going to increase it by 10. So, or actually you were talking about doubling. So let's take that to 15.
You mean 50% increase, not double, just
or 50% increase.
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 15, and let's say your average recon is $2,000.
Yeah.
The average labor rate, we actually, that's like, if you've got it in house, maybe it's 95 and what it works out,
it
the
almost
shop,
doesn't matter here.
but it's, we did check, asked this morning, the Oracle, i.e. Google, what is the average mechanic rate? And it ranged from 85 to 125.
In a local market,
like nationally kind of thing.
Okay.
Yes. So this is high, but but it was up to 125.
I'm just going based on what I kind of hear dealers talk about,
So average time hours 10, labor cost per unit sold is usually just timing that by 10.
So let me try to help people understand the math and not refresh your memory too. So in the left-hand column, what I've got is the current monthly volume of 30 sales a month. And if our average recon is 2,000, and we're trying to figure out, okay, how much of that is labor? So we said, okay, if we were at $95 labor rate and each car averages 10 hours, I don't know the number, it doesn't really matter, is what you'll see, is whatever that number is what it is. But if I have 10 hours of labor per unit, that means 950 of that 2,000 is labor, and the rest is other parts, whatever other, shop supplies, whatever that you're going to hit with the thing. And so now that's basically just saying that's our calculation.
Okay.
And then our current cash and deal, I picked a number because we don't know. We're not really looking at the finance side of this, the down payment and that stuff. I'm just saying, let's say our current cash and deal is $6,000. Then, and let's say our current average gross profit is $6,500. Okay.
Okay.
Then at this 30 sales a month, our total gross profit comes out to $195,000.
Okay.
That's again gross profit. Now, let's say the current car payment average is running $600. That means those 30 sales next month are going to translate into $18,000 of car payments.
I just love this industry. I mean, it's just like, because it's those are big numbers too. So that's one of the reasons why it's like you only have to sell 30.
Yeah.
And this is what you will be bringing in to the business. So,
and it's not just next month. It's like
it's for the next
as long as we
few
can support
years.
those customers
yes.
and have the loans
so
perform,
yeah
right?
So every month, and you're adding, that's compounding every month,
right?
Let's say. So we're increasing this to 15.
Yeah. And so let me go to the bottom of the screen there. It says the total months to break out at that math, our cash and deal divided by the average payment is just real simple math here is 10 months that we would be collecting payments from the customer to break out of our cash and deal. Well, obviously our cash and deal is going to go up whenever we spend more on Recon. We got more dollars tied up.
Yeah.
So over here on the right column, then for those not seeing the screen, your volume is, I did a 15 unit
a half
increase.
again.
Yeah, 50% sales increase. And I'm saying so if I, again, let me pause for a minute. This has got those assumptions. This assumes that you got the capital to do this. It assumes you got the people and the processes to do it, right?
That
It
they'll get them
assumes you
sold
got
if they're
the
on the
market
lot.
and leads. You got the sales opportunity and market and leads, and you got the ability to purchase and replace this much inventory. And so if you flipped a switch and went from selling 30 a month to 45 a month, this assumes you have the ability to do all those things. So all we're really talking about is, again, can't emphasize enough, this is really focused on those dealers who say, I could sell more if I could recondition more.
Yeah.
So why don't we get prepared to spend more to recondition more, because the return on investment is outstanding. So let's look at this math. So right now we changed the only inputs on the right side now are just volume, what volume increase that we were looking for. And again, I'm at 15. And let's say instead of 95 an hour, I'm now paying 150 an hour to this outside shop. And let's say,
because we do recognize that it will be hourly rate, wage will be more.
Right. You'll pay
will be more. Yeah.
And
that should not scare you, is what we're trying to say.
Parts markup, right? You might even end up, so parts, I've done that different ways. I've had it where we just did a PO and the parts were delivered directly to the shop in question. And I don't mind marking up parts if, you know, depending on how they're doing it. So it's because, again, when you run through this math, I just kind of created enough separation in this so you could better feel and see the difference in the numbers.
Explain to me why your current average Recon expense was $2,000 and now it's $25.
It's because I still have 10 hours of labor in the car. What this assumes is I'm still doing the same 10 hours. Like, it doesn't matter if it's on my lift or somebody else's lift, it's still a 10-hour job. Okay. So now if it's a 10-hour job and the labor rate is higher, then now $1,500 goes into labor. And if I assume that my parts element of that, which was $1,050 on the left side, if I keep my parts requirements the same, then I'm at, you know, that same $1,050. So now my cash and deal has moved up by $550 per unit. Okay, that extra labor is really all that's happening here.
And I can just hear dealers going like, that's a lot of money.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. Because I mean, I'm already in this much. And so my risk is now just increasing by X.
Yeah.
So
it is.
Yeah.
It sure is. And let's look at the cost of not doing that extra 15. Okay. So that's what we worked through here. So now our additional cash expenditure, this is monthly. I'm $550 per unit more than I would have been, you know, at my lower rate. And I've got 15 more units, which means my additional cash exposure or expenditure monthly associated with this, putting those 10 cars external is, or 15 cars rather externally, is that
about
a little over $8,200
a month
that I'm coming up with. So now,
dealers, I can hear dealers again cringe. That's a lot of money.
It is.
Okay.
It is. Well, let's talk about the return on these 15 sales you just created.
Exactly.
So let's not leave that part unspoken. So now our average gross is lower. I'm assuming, again, that I keep the same price for the customer. Not the customer's fault that I use an outside shop. So the price
and
is
don't
the price.
make it their problem.
Yeah.
Please.
Don't pass that along.
That's how we get. Yeah.
I call that making a second mistake. If we put a little too much money in the car, that's our mistake. But then if we price it high because of that, that's a second mistake.
That's a second mistake.
But anyway, our gross is going to be less, right? If our price stays the same, our gross is going to be less because we got more labor tied up in the car. So now our total gross on those 15 units is 89 grand that we were not getting. That's 89 grand of gross profit
that we were not.
We let walk away
before.
Monthly. Okay. And so again, you told me this is my only bottleneck. And so,
89. Yeah. I mean, how much can you? I mean, that's a big chunk of money.
Yeah. So let's go on down to the bottom then. Our total gross is 89 that we're leaving on the table. We're not getting that gross profit. Our current payment is the same. Our resulting monthly inflow from those 15 sales is $9,000 a month. But what this says is now, instead of having 10 months to breaking out, And now each contract is 11 months. I'm at 10.9 months.
So you got
risk.
one extra month,
right, of risk
before you break out. And really, I mean, it's to me, when I look at that and I look at all of the numbers, and I've gone through, and it's like, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. It's like, oh, it's just another month of payments.
Right.
We know that, we see on average so many months worth of payments. And so that's money that you would not have made had you stayed with the same business model.
Right.
And it's not increasing your shop's outflow at all. It's not, you're not having to do anything extra. It's costing you a little bit more, but you've got a good sales team that are able to get those units moved. And so that's
the other thing I think we
amazing.
don't have time to really dig into too deep today, but there's, most dealers would be able to absorb their overhead inside that 30 units. Yeah. They already are, right? They're doing all the sales they can do. That's kind of our premise here, is they're doing all the sales they can do. So all their overhead is being absorbed by those 30 sales. So odds are, when you increase that volume to 15 more sales, you move to 45, your cost increase of overhead, we're not looking at that today, but it's like, that's going to be nominal,
marginal
compared to what your dollars per unit on that first 30.
Yep.
Right. So we know that's also a consideration, but let me make it more extreme here. And let's just kind of make it easier numbers. Let me put $100 labor rate on is where we are now internally. But if I start increasing this, let's say the external labor rate goes to $200.
What does that do? It's another month and a half of payments.
1.7. So that's extreme, though. That's $200 labor rate externally.
You're not. I don't think that there are very many, unless it's for BMW or one of the imports that have just a lot different schooling for them to be able to work on.
So let me kind of explain what people are seeing there. When I say 1.7 months to recover the additional cash expenditure, here's the math. When we increase that labor rate to 200. Now our additional cash expenditure went to 15 grand. We had to come up with an extra 15 grand, sort of. I mean, we're paying what we normally pay for the 15, but then we have this extra cost of additional expenditure of 15 grand. But when we sell those 15 units, that creates $9,000 of incoming car payments next month. Now that takes it's like 1.7 ratio. I'm going to recover that money. It takes me less than 2 months to basically recover that additional expenditure. And so 2 months more of risk versus not having the sale at all. Like, this is why I'm saying if Recon is really our bottleneck, it can be solved. We may be going farther than we want. We may be paying more than we want. So let's say I even do this. Let's say I just, I got to find out if I can do 15. I got to find out if this Jim Rhoads is crazy. Like, can you really do this? So I'm going to go pay $200 labor rate, and I'm going to turn an extra 15 cars next month. Okay. So now I'm going to do that for a couple of months. And then about the time I get my second round of statements from this dealer or from this shop that is charging me $200, I'm going to show up over there one morning with a box of donuts and my last couple of months of statements. And I'm going to sit and say, hey, looks like we spent X with you in September and this much in October. And can we talk about a labor rate? And by the way, you guys fixed 2, we brought you 2, we turned them through pretty quick. It looks like you're getting most of the business. You asked for all of it. You're getting most of it. You're outrunning the other 4 shops that I added. So let's talk. Can you help me at all on the labor rate? It's a question. It's not a statement. I'm not in there, but I'm in there knowing that I've got my statement. Hey, it looks like we spent 18 grand with you in September and 22 grand with you in October. Can we talk about this rate? And inevitably that rate's going to improve. They're not going to want to miss your business. Right. And so, you can, and I can tell them casually over a box of donuts, you guys are 200, but I've got another shop that's doing, almost as much as you guys, and they're charging 150. So, I can I'll be honest, be transparent. Here's my situation, but I've now created an environment. The reason I want to pay their rate at the beginning is I don't want the conversation to start from an adversarial standpoint. I know dealers being car dealers, we want to go in there and beat up somebody.
We're going to try to beat them down in
Right.
price,
And
and they
so
haven't even worked with you.
I'm in a much better position. I'm much more
And
leverage.
when you bring donuts,
Right, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm going to
or a
show up
thing
with,
of coffee
Yeah.
or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I'm going to show up with a box of 10 donuts because I ate 2 on the way over. Right. So
We're talking about Jim here.
Yeah.
Yashmel, I just wanted to say good morning. It looks
Yeah.
like
Hey,
you-
good morning, Ishmael. So yeah, this is part of what we'd recommend. You got to get comfortable with this idea of using outside shops. Are you going to pay more? Yes. Are you going to now enjoy the markup and profit from those sales and next month's cash flow that you were missing altogether?
There's a lot of numbers to kind of move around, but this kind of gives you an idea because, even if you took your in-house at $75 an hour with all of this, the whatever it is that they're charging extra, and you're taking it down, like we said, is the average costs are 85 to about 125 an hour. So you took it down to $125 an hour, $125 an hour. It still is, it's not that much.
Right.
I mean, it's a month or 2
tops. Is it more than we want to pay? Absolutely.
But then
the cost of missing those 15 sales, because again, this whole premise is you're telling me that Recon is your only bottleneck. And if that's true, then one, either it's not true, because if it is true, then this solves it. And am I going to pay more? Yes. And so again, I may have to drive farther to get these shops lined up. But when you find 2 or 3, if I add 5 and I end up with even 1 or 2 hungry shops out of the 5, then, again, some of them may only be turning 1, 3, 4 months, and that's okay. That's cars I wasn't getting to myself. Right. And so now I got them and I've got them available and my sales are up and my salespeople are fired up because we got, extra inventory and it's turning. And so this is just the other thing I would say is like, there's a lot of elements that we can kind of put aside. If we don't have problems in the sales process, we got leads and we got opportunity, we can close them, then we don't have that problem over there. So this just addresses Recon and it allows you to spend more, turn more, sell more, replace more. Now your statements with that hungry shop is going up, up, up because they're doing more and more. They're turning out more stuff. And it really, when you find the right shops, it really just gets easy.
Well, and we know we've actually seen dealerships that were doing, this was a factor that we were talked about this morning, but we didn't bring into this is, if you're not able to increase your output in your dealership shop, look at whether or not you're doing customer repairs too. Because customer repairs can really screw up how the flow of getting Recon through. And we've coached some dealerships through, let's outsource all of the customer repairs and then just keep your Recon. If you have the ability to be able to keep that flow, and what's holding you back that those extra 10 cars is because you're doing a lot of customer repairs. Get the customer repairs to those shops and start working, keep that Recon in house, because it's a lot easier to keep a team of techs happy when they are not interrupted every 5 minutes to take a quick look at a new car.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think the other piece that we kind of glazed over here was this idea that the big assumption that we have here is that your own shop is running at capacity. And there's another kind of fallacy or myth that we need to break up. This idea that, I need to have 60 cars to sell 30 a month. It's just not true. And I'll tell you why. Let me give you the best example I have is that the dealership that I managed in Tennessee had, we relocated it and had a couple of lifts and had really one tech and then kind of a lube tech in there. But our tech was really, he was involved in buying and he was certainly involved in assessment. and it was really good. He could assess the stuff and
Mhm.
get it right the first time most times. And so that's worth a lot. And so now we had, imagine you got 2 lifts. And so you go to the auction and you buy 8 cars and you bring it back in here and you do a quick assessment of all of them and you cherry pick for your own shop because you have a limited amount of time in your shop, a limited amount of space. And you say, I'm going to keep these 3 because these 3 I can turn around. This is just a simple, alternator replacement, whatever those look like, the
Mhm.
simple ones. And I'm going to turn those myself. And so we'll and
Mhm.
those, so I'm going to keep those. And guess what? If I go 4 days and I'm not getting to it, and so calls and says,
I'm
I'm ready for 2 more,
the
fine, run it up there.
and Jim, one of the things that he's talked about where if you have multiple shops that are doing work and there's one that's hungry, if a car is sitting in their holding space waiting for time on a lift
Mhm.
at a different shop, pull the car and take it to the
I've
shop
done
that's
it.
going to get right to
I've
it.
done it.
And that's going to be a real motivator
Uh-huh.
for the shop that just had a car pulled.
Sure.
It's like these need to be a priority, and we need to
Well,
get them through.
It's like
Yeah.
the way I try to say this, and this is the attitude that I would bring to every one of these
Mhm.
shops that I would go talk to is, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I'm not going to come over here and demand that you turn the cars faster. I'm just going to tell you, like the way I always say it, I'm not going to tell you how to run your business. I'm just going to tell you how to earn mine. Okay. So it means
Yeah.
here's
Yeah.
what it will take to earn my business. So you guys aren't getting to this one. I've got somebody ready for it. So I'm gonna grab it and pull it over. And they might kind of, we
Bach.
get a little bit unhappy that you're there to get the keys, but it's your car and it's your decision. And so you go pull the car and you move it somewhere else. And pretty soon they figure out, oh, I can't just let these sit around. They're really turning cars. And so that it's important that, we get them moving. So I
Yeah.
think the best example I have is this one in Tennessee where that inventory on any given day was probably 16 to 20 cars. We probably had a capacity on the lot of around 20 cars, but
Mhm.
we're selling some and we're pretty consistently turning over. But that an inventory of 16 to 20 cars, and we were very consistently delivering 35 to 40 a month. So 2 times.
Did everyone hear that? Because we there's this notion that if I'm going to sell 30 cars in a month, I need 30 cars on my lot
Yeah.
at the same time.
Well, and the freshness element, like
Yeah.
if you start building a social media
Mhm.
following and they can see the freshness, they can say, oh, here's a photo. It looked like they delivered another one. Oh man,
Mhm.
it looks like they delivered 3 today. Oh man. So I wanted to go look at that little Toyota pickup and now it's
It's
gone.
gone. Yeah.
So you start to create that urgency
Mhm.
scenario where people say, oh, this stuff moves. It's not dirty. It doesn't have,
Mhm.
6-month-old key tags on it. Like it's fresh, it's turning. The stickers are good. Like I can tell this stuff is fresh and I can say, oh, they're just putting stickers on a new one coming in right now. And look, that customer's taking delivery over there on one. It's like the stuff is moving. And so I think if we kind of stay on an island and tell ourselves that's not possible, then we limit ourselves in our ability to start to produce this kind of turnover on the inventory. And so this is the part that I think we just want to drive home and just like, look, if you got to pay more to get the stuff turned around, then you got to pay more because the cost of
Mhm.
not doing that business is painful. When you got the capital available sitting there, you got the manpower to be able to produce 45 instead of 30 in our
Mhm.
example, then that's costly. It's costing you money to not produce that business,
Mhm.
so it's missed
Mhm.
opportunity. And when
Mhm.
we have the capacity, and that's the thing I talk about with dealers a lot, if you have the capacity to do 45, let's get you to 45.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know
We have this has been a long conversation.
Yeah.
But a good one. And hopefully
important.
that there's a lot of information there. So again, if you're listening to the audio podcast, please go to YouTube and like and subscribe while you're there, and you can see all of the different charts and all of that. Jim loves Excel spreadsheets. He's really good at putting those together too.
I'm a nerd from day one, from way back.
He's an Excel spreadsheet nerd. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. It's Friday. Enjoy your weekend. I hope that you get outside and enjoy some of the new fall colors a little bit.
Mhm.
And we will be back next Wednesday with another White Hat Wednesday topic. And yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No, we'll see you then.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. Thanks again for joining.